Hello my fellow ship friends. This video is dedicated entirely to the process of the first planking of my Bounty boat. I'll walk you through every step that is needed to perform a first planking. From sanding the bulkheads, measuring the strips, using a planking fang, tapering the strips, bending the strips, putting the strips on the ship itself until the final upper strip is completed. So this is for now. Next video will be about the second planking, and thereafter I will do the weathering. So if you like it, if you have suggestions, leave a comment. Don't forget to click the subscribe button, and I'll see you again next video with the second planking. See you then. Bye bye.
So I've done quite a lot of sanding here, as you can see, to make sure that the bulwarks on my wooden Bounty mode model ship kit align perfectly with each other before starting the first planking. I temporarily fitted the plank without glue or nails, and as you can see here, I made small notches to help the plank bend smoothly along the hull, an essential step in model ship first planking techniques. It's important to sand carefully so the plank fits perfectly against each bulkhead, ensuring a tight and smooth curve on the hull of the model ship. I've temporarily placed a few planks on the inside where the benches will later be installed. This prevents hull deformation while continuing with the building process. Before starting the first planking, I'm adding a part of the bow section. And here I've marked the thickness of the first plank to guide accurate placement. This section will be removed, creating a small slot once the bow is mounted onto the keel. When the first plank is bent into shape, it can slide neatly into the slot, creating a clean and professional joint between the bow and the first planking layer. This method also makes it easier to stop the first planking precisely at the bow and finish it immediately, avoiding the need to trim planks later. Here you can clearly see the structure of the plywood, 3 layers. The goal is to remove the thickness of the 2 outer layers for a precise bow fit. And I start by loosening the outer layer with a chisel. Now a first plank, cut at an angle at the end, fits neatly into place, creating a smooth and accurate connection to the bow and improving the overlook of the first planking on this model ship. I started the first planking by fixing both initial strips about 3 mm below the top edge of the bulkheads. This creates a consistent reference line for the rest of the hull. The plank you see here has just been installed. To keep it in place, I alternate between clamps and small nails, depending on where the tension of the wood was the strongest. This view shows very clearly why shaping the bulkheads correctly is so important. With the right curve, the plank fits against the frame, giving maximum contact and strong bond along the hull. Because the keel was already in position, I could slot the plank neatly into the notch by adding another plank in front as a support and clamping it. The plank stayed firmly in place while the glue dried. I didn't nail every bulkhead. Where the plank naturally follows the curve, glue alone is enough. But whenever there is even a slight change in an angle, I secure it with the nail to avoid gaps. The very end of the plank is always nailed to the last bulkhead. This ensures both sides the hull finish symmetrically. For the lower plank, I prepared it carefully by sawing, sanding and bending until it fits precisely into the notch below. I also tapered the inner edge slightly so it would sit smoothly against the keel without leaving a gap. Once shaped, this bottom plank doesn't need further adjustments. It runs cleanly all the way to the stern and defines the edge of the first planking layer. From here, I take measurements at each rib. This step is essential to taper the remaining planks correctly so they blend evenly across the hull. As shown earlier, sanding the bulkheads correctly is essential. This prevents you from having to force the planks into place. It also ensures that the planks follow the right naturally orientation. The result is a better contact between the planks and the bulkheads, which adds strength and stability to the hull. A common technique among many model builders is to let the plank extend past the bow and trim them off once the glue has dried. This way, the false keel can be added later. For this build, I chose a different approach. The false keel was already attached with a notch cut out so the planks at the bow could immediately be secured in the right place and trimmed to the correct length from the start. Here you can see the cardboard plank, the very first plank laid next to the false keel. It sets the foundation for the rest of the planking. The top plank is positioned just below the top of the bulkheads. It plays a major role in defining also the look of the hull. This plank is usually not tapered as it follows the natural curve of the ship. Before continuing, I need to determine how many planks will be required and how wide each one needs to be at different points along the hull. I'll now show you how I approached this step on this elegant bounty boat. To plan this, I made a table for my measurements and prepared strips of paper to represent each bulkhead, starting here with number 1, then bulkhead 9, and there's a number 10, the point where the cardboard planks comes to an end. distance between the upper plank and the garboard plank has been measured. As expected, the widest gap is at the two largest bulkheads, 53 mm on this model. Each plank is 5 mm wide, so dividing 53 by 5 means I'll need at least 10 full planks. This gives us the number of planks required and helps plan the hull planking more accurately. To calculate the exact width of each plank, I'm using a planking fan, a very useful tool for wooden ship model building. You can easily find one online. It ensures us that the planks are tapered evenly across the hull. Here I've cut out a paper strip for bulkhead number 10. You can see the marking, which represents the distance between the top plank and the garboard plank. Since I'm working with 10 planks, I now slide the strip across the planking fan until the top and bottom lines contains a spacing of exact 10 of those planks. This gives me 10 planks fitting neatly between these points. I now mark the spacing directly on the paper strip, which will serve as a guide for plank tapering on the hull. Next, these measurements are transferred onto bulkhead number 10. This ensures the planking pattern remains consistent across the whole of the hull. With the spacing prepared, the next step is to start tapering the planks. First, I've cut the front end of this plank at an angle so it fits perfectly into the notch of the false keel. And finally, I mark the exact positions of each bulkhead along this plank. This ensures every plank is shaped precisely, giving the hull a smooth and professional finish. So now I'm going to use the paper strips to transfer the markings onto each plank at the exact location of the corresponding bulkhead. This step is key for accurate model ship planking. Next, I connect the markings with a ruler and a pencil. After that, I shape the plank to its final tapered form using a knife and a file. Here you can see how all the markings are connected. I'll always leave a little extra length at the end instead of cutting it short right away. This way, if there's any miscalculation, I still have some margins. Now we start bending the plank. From the keel up to the middle of the hull, you can see the plank naturally follows almost the same curve as the top plank. From this point onward, however, the plank not only needs to bend along the hull, but also has to take an upward curve. To create this upward bend, I moisten the plank slightly by dipping my finger in water and spread it over the surface. I don't soak the plank completely, since wood already contains some natural moisture. Instead, I apply heat with a small iron to bend it. Once the plank goes down, it should hold a nice upward curve. The regular bending is done in the same way. I repeat this process until the plank fits almost perfectly against the hull without needing to apply any force. I've bent the plank both upwards and sideways, and now I'm checking for the first time if it's close to the shape it needs to be on the hull. The upward curves looks fine, it's even slightly overbent, but the sideways bend still needs improvement before the plank fits without applying force, so it's back to the iron for more shaping. So it's mainly this section of the plank that requires additional bending to follow the hull properly. So second bending session, same procedure. As you can see now, it fits much better. I don't need to use any pressure to place the plank correctly, which is the goal in model ship planking techniques, of course. For attaching the plank to the hull, I'll use contact glue instead of white glue. This makes the process faster and is strong enough to hold the first planking securely in place. Here you can see the result of the first plank placed neatly under the top plank. I didn't taper these inner planks since an extra layer will go on the outside, and I prefer to keep it inside, which remains visible, as clean and neat as possible. While this side dries and holds its final shape, I prepare another plank. That plank will be fixed on the opposite side of the hull to avoid any deformation and keep the model ship balanced during construction. So the first planking is now finished. you can see that the markings I placed on the bulkheads match up quite well with the planks. It went very well, not perfect, but definitely not bad either. Because of the shape of the hull, there is a very steep curve here, and since I ended up being about a third of a plank short, as explained in the calculation step, I had to use a wedge plank to make everything fit smoothly. On the inside, it looks pretty good. You can clearly see the full planks tapering nicely towards the bow and the keel. Now I need to clean up the inside, removing all glue residue. After that, I might start painting and weathering before adding the benches on the bulkheads. Looking at the outside along the keel, the tapering on the first plank turned out quite well as well. Here's the wedge plank I mentioned earlier, which I had to insert so the planks would taper properly towards the bow. Next, I'll sand down the entire first planking, preparing the hull for a second planking layer. Now I need to cut 5 openings of 5 by 5 millimeters in the upper plank that I just fixed in place. These notches start here, between the two bulkheads where a bench will be placed, and they end here, in the middle of the last two bulkheads that also hold benches. I measured the distance, it's 18 centimeters, divided by 5, which means 3.6 centimeters between the centers of each notch. I marked the spacing on a separate plank, which I'll now use as a template to transfer the cutting points onto the plank. The midpoint between these two bulkheads is exactly 6.3 centimeters. I also measured the distance on the opposite side of the hull, so the notches for the benches will start at exactly the same position on both sides.